10 years ago, on June 20th, 2015, Star Wars Rebels The Siege of Lothal premiered on DisneyXD. Welcome to the Jedi Ranger. I'm JohnBird555, and we're going to be talking about this episode. Now, before we begin, I do want to mention that if you have went to Celebration Anaheim that year, on April 18th, they did an early screening of this episode. I did not get to see that, but I did get to see it when it aired on DisneyXD, and this episode is different in my head thanks to everything that we saw in Star Wars Andor. Maybe because it gives me a new read on one of the scenes. But to actually talk about that, we need to understand and recap the episode. So, the Ghost crew is integrating into Phoenix Squadron and the wider Rebel Alliance, Rebel Network. And the Empire, well, wants to punish them, capture them, because they destroyed Grand Moff Tarkin's Star Destroyer, which he is not happy about. So to do that, they lay a trap. Darth Vader and Agent Kallus go to Minister Tiya and basically have Vader play the good cop with the threat of Tarkin being the bad cop in order to trick her into wanting to defect to the rebels, in order so that way they can lure the rebels back to Lothal so that they can frame the rebels for assassinating Minister Tiya to get the planet to turn against the rebels. And is it just me? And by the way, that's exactly what ends up happening. But is it just me? Or is this very much in line with the MO that we saw the Empire do in Star Wars Andor? The rebels have always been, almost always acting in response to the Empire. But the Empire has always been provoking, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. But whenever they try to crack down on rebel activity, they normally always create more rebels. And while I don't know if any new rebels are created in this episode, the idea that the Empire is staging a false flag operation to basically create lack of sympathy for rebellious elements to justify further oppression, further tyranny, is straight out of what we saw in Andor. Bad luck Gorman, in this case, bad luck Lothal. They don't care about the people. They just want to be able to justify greater oppression and tyranny. And we can even read real-life events into that, though Andor might be a better description there, but there's current events as I'm filming this review right now going on in the United States that is like the powers that be are trying to claim there's greater, resistance, I guess, going on. Honestly, resisting tyranny is almost always justified. You can debate optics all you want, but the point being is that there are events going on that definitely can, things are escalating, and they may be escalating in the powers that want to increase their own powers' favor because of how events are being portrayed by them and by the media, but not by the people on the ground, including local government officials and law enforcement officials on the ground, which is very interesting and a discussion for another time, probably talking more about the realness in Star Wars. But getting back to this episode, the first part of the episode is all about basically the rebels being drawn back to Lothal and all that, and escaping Lothal, barely surviving Darth Vader, and I really love how both Kanan and Ezra describe the dark side as being cold, which is very interesting because yes, there is a scene where Zeb and Sabine blow up some Imperial walkers in the land of Darth Vader, and Vader uses the Force and he's surrounded by fire. His layers are Mustafar with fire, so that invokes maybe devil imagery. But here they're using cold, lack of warmth, lack of life, and if you will, to describe the feeling of the dark side they're getting from just being around Darth Vader, which I think is a very neat feeling and way of describing, and I really wish most Star Wars stories would kind of lean into that. Mainly because they don't always describe the dark side. This is, I think, one of the better ways of describing how a Jedi and how a Force user would feel the dark side when they're being confronted with it. And I really, really do like that. Another thing to note here is to get off Lothal, they go get help from Lando. And I just can't help but laugh how Lando basically cons them out of basically half of the the Imperial-grade military shield generator that they took with them when they were escaping Lothal. That's Lando. But it also makes me want a scene now where Hera and Lando meet during the time of, like Return of the Jedi, during all that, because they were right there. They can reminisce on the old times, and you can have Zeb in the background just shaking his head. I would love that. I would love that. But they do get away and all that, escape, but they're being tracked. The track has been put on their ship because that's what the Empire wanted them to do, or what Vader wanted them to do. And, well, they are ambushed basically by Vader, who, by the way, doing all this before they even get off, has Tarkin Town, so the refugee town, burned. Not because the rebels there, just because, and taking everyone as prisoner, i.e. slaves, prison slave labor, if you will, because that's exactly what's going on. But I just had to mention that real quick before we get back into the Vader taking down the rebels almost single-handedly, outclassing all the starfighters. And the only thing that really stops him is when the Ghost crew plus Ahsoka get on the Ghost to confront him, and then Ahsoka and Kanan reach out with the Force to sense who this guy is, and Ahsoka faints because it's Anakin, and Vader goes, "The apprentice lives." Yeah. Overwhelmed with emotions is definitely way, and Vader focuses on them solely, which allows the rest of the Phoenix Squadron to escape, and also Hera shows us some excellent piloting by going to hyperspace right at the right time in order to avoid being caught in the Imperial tractor beam, but getting Vader caught in the tractor beam. And then Admiral Constantine, in order to cover his own butt, blames the deck officer for all of it. He tells the deck officer it's not his fault, but Vader won't know that. That is cold. But that very much fits everything we've seen in most cases as the Empire. Your only way to protect yourself from your failures is to pass the blame on to somebody else. And this is no one else to blame. You get blamed. We saw that in Andor. Well, basically, blame keeps on getting pushed down to the lowest rung, to the lowest rung that can be blamed. And when there's no one there, it gets up to the next blame level. And that is very much also Imperial MO. It's a dog-eats-dog world, if you will. And then the episode ends with Vader contacting the Emperor and lets him know that he believes Ahsoka Tano lives. And that, and Vader hopes that Ahsoka being alive will help lead him to Kenobi, because Kenobi is... Yeah, Vader still wants to get Kenobi. And we do see one of their engagements in the Kenobi show. And by the way, I just love how basically every time Vader says that he wants to go confront Kenobi, Emperor Palpatine is like, he's probably dead, be patient. And I just find that so hilarious in kind of like the ironic sort of way. And, maybe if the Emperor let Vader off his leash to find Kenobi, Luke Skywalker would have never become a Jedi. It's just kind of that a little bit of ironies right there, and something I'm thinking about when I was watching this episode. But I also do like how, some of this stuff has, especially with Vader and Kenobi, has been taken to help influence how they portrayed the story there in Kenobi, despite this being the first example of Vader saying, at least on screen, that he wants to find Kenobi. So just an all good episode. I think a really great way of reintroducing us to Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels, getting everything set up for where the story is going to go from here. Now, we're going to have to wait till October before we can talk about Episode 3 of The Lost Commandos. But in the meantime, stay tuned. I'm reviewing every Star Wars film. I'm also going to be re-reviewing the ones I have already reviewed as well, so stay tuned for those reviews. Also, stay tuned. I'm going to try to see if there's any other old Star Wars episodes that I've not reviewed yet on the channel. I'll try to work those reviews into my review roster as well. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this review. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you, always.